Alright, gonna record like 20-25 minute play and explain here on ACR. I moved back to the States, so can't really play on GG anymore, even though I think it's a more popular site to play and watch. ACR is definitely a bit reggier, um, less recreational, but lower rake. Here, I think we're going to play fairly polar and mainly bet Queen X and like sixes, and use the overbet size, although I'm not really 100% sure. But it's possible to also use two sizes, a block size and um, an overbet. Here we just have a pretty clear check on the river, and then we will call if he bets. Um, on this board, I'm just gonna play a strategy of betting range small. So Queens is gonna get in there. You don't want to play like big bets on this board just because you're going to start lacking some bluffs and you have a lot of value and you're not going to be able to bet as much as you might want. But pretty clear check on the turn, unfortunately. And then we'll check this as well. So he's going to have hands like ace-5 a lot, ace-4. But he can also have hands like king-queen, king-jack. And he checks pretty quickly, so I think, even though we might have a little bit of showdown value, I think just betting fairly large here works pretty well as a bluff. We also potentially block some hands that he might decide to trap. Like if he has queen jack suited, he might go for a check jam or something like that. So I think it's a decent spot to bluff. Going to be mainly betting small and monotone boards. The board really is quite subject to change, so you don't want to start using huge bets and then the board is so dynamic that some of your value hands become quite middling. But versus small check raise, we have a pretty easy call. He can have some flushes, but he can also have some sets. And then he can have bluffs with, ace of diamonds, queen of diamonds. When he checks, I think he's almost never going to have a flush. He could have some sets that he decides to check. But we're definitely going to bet just to charge some random check raises, random diamonds. Even if he check raised something like king 8 with the 8 of diamonds, makes sense to bet. So we bet really small, indicating he's going for a range bet, and I think we want to be quite aggressive check raising these bets. And this hand is a decent one to do it with. Backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw. We interact really well with some turns. But super blank river, just gonna have to give this one up. He goes for an overbet, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, like, because I have so many give ups. You want to just kind of bet small and generate a lot of folds, and or like attack that portion of my range. But yeah, I can't really do anything with my hand. The overbet doesn't really put too many of my hands in a tough spot. If I check raise like 2 pair or set, I have an easy call. Even something like, I suppose I could have something like ace queen ace jack, which is put in a tough spot, but those hands are going to bet turn a fair amount of the time. So it's an interesting one. Middle position versus button. We're going to be quite aggressive when 4-betting. I mean, aces are going to be in there pretty clearly, but we're going to have a lot of bluffs here. Stuff like king jack suited, king 10 suited, get in here, ace queen off. These type of hands that play not too bad post flop. This hand we can, I mean, this board I'm gonna go for half pot or check because so many hands of mine missed, and I have a lot of overpairs I want to get the money in. I think aces with the ace of clubs might want to go for a check here. But we could also, yeah, I think check is fine. I was thinking we could also bet like half pot and then check some turns. I just want to have some overpairs in my check call range occasionally. And this turn doesn't really improve him too much. Well, it improves hands like 6, 7, 7, 8. But the bulk of his betting or bulk of his hands are gonna be like suited Broadway stuff. Okay, I hope I don't time out. Then we have an easy call versus sevens, which is kind of an interesting shove. And chop it up. Yeah, I mean, I think sevens is like kind of he's wanting to get the hand over with because I have a lot of ace king, ace queen there, some like king queen suited with backdoor flush draw. So the way to like really punish those hands is bet small again, and then you can like check or jam some rivers. But just jamming, you're like mainly getting called by better, and I guess some flush draws. Like I might have some flush draws, but here we're range betting. Good board for us. We have all the sets, all the straights that he's gonna lack some of the sets, and then like some of the nutted straights. All right. How long have I been recording? About 9 minutes. I'll probably go for like 10 minutes or more. So. This guy's really tight, so I would open the 10-5 suited. So ace queen suited here is going to play pretty well as a call versus a 3-bet because we dominate some hands, and you know it really hurts to 4-bet fold in these spots. So definitely going to go for the call. King queen off here can actually 4-bet like a small, I think 10-20% frequency against a normal 3-bet range. He bets very small, so I'm going to go for a check raise here because on these paired boards he can c-bet a lot, and we're going to attack that by putting in some check raises. Some of my like semi bluffs would be like deuces, threes, fives, which you know can occasionally fold out a couple better hands. They get protection from his suited broadways, and you know they can backdoor some stuff. And so that's actually a pretty good turn for my range. He has a lot of kings to tens, and I think like a kind of like a small middling bet like this actually kind of puts those hands starting to get in a tough spot. Like he might have to start folding some pocket tens, and like a lot of those hands. So we're going to do that. And then on the river we just have a pretty easy shove for value. He can have like snap calls with like ace king, ace four suited. It's hard for me to have bluffs again. As I said, my bluffs would have to be stuff like deuces and fives. But like our hand is pretty clearly gonna want to just bet huge for value. All my ace-x that's not a boat I could use as block, or I could use as check to protect my checking range. But yeah, pretty clear spot, like especially when I hit the river, to just try and cooler like some of his ace king, ace four suited type hands. We're gonna go for a check here. I like betting small on a lot of boards, but here we have a pretty clear like starting, like a hand that kind of wants to show down, doesn't really want to put a lot of money in the pot, so I'm gonna put this in my checking range and just try and check down to the river. So we bet small on this river, which is kind of interesting. The queen is a decent card for me, so you'd think he'd want to bet a bit bigger if he's betting. But I guess our hand doesn't really have a great raise. We don't really block many of the strong hands. Like I want a heart there because he can still have a lot of flushes. For small, we have pretty clear call. We can check raise like some gut shots, some straight draws, but this hand doesn't really benefit from check raising too much. And then on the river, he's going to bet the vast majority of his jack X that he opens. He's not opening like jack 5 suited. So we have the best hand a decent amount. He can have king 10, ace 10. We can also call with like 10-9 suited, 10-8. Okay. I was going to block there for value, but timing out. But if he bets, we'd have an easy check. Yeah, so this type of hand he could actually go for a call with. So kind of a shame we didn't throw out the block. Here we're going to bet half pot with a wide portion of our range. Here, pretty clear check. You know, we can still charge some draws, but he's gonna have ace-x. He's gonna have hands that he's snap folding that are worth like 6s, 7s. And yeah, pretty clear check here. Shouldn't really lose too often. He can definitely have some ace-x. Pocket tens makes sense. I mean, pocket tens is gonna 4-bet a decent amount there, but that's possible as well. And check raise the flop some portion of the time as well. But nothing really to do. We're gonna call ace-2. Guy seems pretty wide over very small sample, but still makes some sense to factor that in because any sample is a sample and gives you some information. I'm just gonna check down ace high. So I think we can definitely bet here. And get calls from other ace high. It kind of sucks to block the ace, which is like one of his main calling hands. But I think we're just good enough of the time for that to make sense as a value bet on the river. You want to be pretty wide value betting blind versus blind. Gonna 3-bet the eights here, if we get the opportunity to. We're a bit deeper, but making basically a deviation against a wider player. So we get this guy 3-betting us to a small size. I actually think I could call this in position there, but 6-5 off we can defend against kind of a small raise, button versus big blind. And versus small, we are going to call. and have easy fold against aggression. Ace Jack here, gonna function pretty well as a 3-bet, or 4-bet I should say. We can roll for it, but I'm gonna do it like 75% of the time. And then checking a lot out of position here. Ace Jack, you get called by some hands you dominate, like King Jack, Queen Jack, Jack 10 suited, Ace 10 suited, Ace 5 suited. But obviously cannot call a jam. Gonna 3-bet this one. You want to 3-bet some of the, low offsuited aces as bluffs or semi-bluffs, because he's gonna fold hands like ace 8 off. So when I 3-bet these lower hands, they benefit a lot from playing post flop. They have a good blocker against getting 4-bet. So gonna be aggressive there, blind versus blind. Going to range bet this board. We don't have a 10x advantage, but we just have a general equity advantage. A lot of the better overpairs and a lot of the better ace highs that he might not have. Jack 8, we can still defend here, multi-white. And pretty easy continue on the flop. Very bad river, and we will check fold, I suppose. He doesn't really have too much air. Interesting, he checks back queens on that turn. Doesn't really make sense to me. Here, double flush draw board. We've got a very strong gutter flush draw, and we will still have like hands like jacks, queens, 8s, 10, 9 suited, pocket 4s, kings, and aces that we will want to use a very large size with. 4-5 is a fine hand to defend with, and the 3-bet isn't huge, so I am going to call it. And we flop open-ender, so we'll definitely go for a check raise. This is a good spot. We can fold out a lot of the under pairs, and we will check raise stuff like ace queen if we ever have it, ace king offsuit, pocket 3s, pocket 7s. Not too much else. And this seems like a really good hand to barrel. I mean, we don't block any of the ace 4 suited hands, ace 5 suited hands. They might start folding. So we're just going to continue with half pot, which is our check raise size, and probably shove the river. We don't block any folds. The 10 is not a great card. I was hoping for something like a 4 I could shove. And at this point, I'm not sure if he's ever going to fold ace king. But he could have a hand like ace jack, ace queen he folds. It's getting pretty close. This is one of our best bluff hands. I'm just not sure if we really want to bluff at all in this line. Just considering he doesn't really have any like insta folds. Everything he has is like a top pair or better, except for like 7-8. Yeah, and now he just jams pretty quickly, so pretty happy I decided not to bluff. Really, really, really hard for him to have bluffs in that line. That was an interesting hand, so I guess we'll wrap it up here. So thanks for watching.